Okay, well, good afternoon. We're going to look at some damage that occurred in Anguilla and what lessons we can learn as practical as possible. So we look at some roofs. Here we go. This is the police station, main police station in Anguilla. Hit roof. That's the front. That's the back. Lots of the roof sheeting went. You see how it was fixed. That's at 6-inch centers at the eaves and 1 foot or 12 inches throughout, 300 millimeters. And that's generally the standard, and it failed badly. So we recommend at the college, this is what we teach now, 3 inches around the eaves and 6 inches throughout. And any properties that we are looking at, that's what we recommend. And you can see that's what's happening across the Caribbean right now. That's here in Barbados. We do have some influence. And you recommend that that's the new standard because it's very economical. A few more screws, blam. Here is a school, and it's the loss of the battens that was really the problem. So they're coming up. Here, the purlins, the roof, the ceiling, this tile got soggy and didn't perform well at all. Now you'll see they have 3 inch spacing at the gable end, and yet the roof sheeting was removed because it was a little too thin. There's the 3 inch spacing there. It's very thin and it tore. Anything less than 0.5 millimeters isn't expected to survive, and that's why they shouldn't be selling anything less than anything less than 0.5 millimeters should not really be sold in the Caribbean. Another hip-shaped roof, and that survived. And on a closer inspection, well, here we have some of these shutters, and these perform reasonably well. These generally perform reasonably well. So if you're selling these, that's a good thing to sell. I think BRC, you'll sell these? Yes, very good, yes. Now, if you're doing good work, I will try to point you out. Right, so Mr. Gibbs is doing good work, so you point him out there. We had a lot of impact damage. You see them there. But when you take a look, and some of these sheets were old, you see some corrosion there. Yet, between 3 to 6 inches, the fixings are at the eaves, and between 9 and 12 inches inside. And that's why our recommended standard is 3 inches around, 3 inches at the eaves and at the ridges, at the apex, and 6 inches throughout. So, and that's generally what we found. So that's why that's the recommended new standard. Generally, where the roof failed, it failed wherever we had that joint at the apex. And really it should be braced at both sides. You splice it at both sides or use one of those moment connectors. But if you just bolt it in or nail it in, they tend to fail. So whenever we had those failures, generally that's where it started. Connecting to the walls using these wires, 6 millimeter rebar, didn't generally work too well. So there's the truss anchors that really should be used. Along the ridge, they were toe nailing, and that's not good enough. Doors generally failed, external doors that is. Here's another school, and that's where it failed. So wherever the roof frame failed, that's normally where it started. Windows. So these windows, they appear to pop right out. And when you take a closer look at them, you see that the hole is reamed, and in the wall itself, there's the screw. Head is kind of small, so a bigger head would have worked. Usually they don't fix it to the top side, and therefore the damage usually starts there. They fixed the sides quite well. But when I say quite well, the whole of the head still needs to be bigger. Right. Doors, they should be fixed, each door at 4 points. Learned that from Mr. Gibbs. Thank you, Mr. Mentor. However, there's a door on the right and the door on the left, the same door space. So the one on the left had bolts, the one on the right did not, and it was just, you just used the little tongue for the opening. And therefore, all that rattling caused the door to deform, and it's sort of shackled out a little bit. So even though the bolts are down, the frame of the door was damaged. As it there. So each door panel should have connections at all 4 corners. The ceilings, yes, damaged severely. So the ceilings had to be replaced, and that's an unnecessary expense. You can use maybe magnesium oxide or some other board that can take water. It's waterproof. Here's another school. The battens again were the weak point in this because they are nailed, and therefore once the battens come up, the roof comes up with it. The stand-in seam performed fairly well. I didn't see any failures with the stand-in seam type roof. Laminated glass generally performed well. So that's impact damage. However, the whole window sometimes came out because it wasn't fixed in properly. That's laminated glass again. The hotels, the main problem again was the window and door openings. They did spend a lot of money here, and they used a lot of laminated glass, but the frame of the door or the frame of the window was the weak point. You see the number, there are 6 hinges on one end, and then you just, they did have bolts for the top and the bottom, but they weren't in. So all that rattling, you get failure. So when the hurricane is coming, make sure you install, well, fix the bolts, put them on. Here again.
Vertically?
These are, pardon?
Preferably vertical.
Yeah, they're vertical, top and bottom.
Horizontal.
No, you just want them in.
External doors have horizontal both. Just as
Oh, well, yes.
top and bottom.
Yes. Well, what you're trying to do is prevent movement as much as you can. You want to prevent movement. Once you stick it to the top and the bottom into the frame, it's not moving. If you go into the next door, next to it, the adjacent door, then you're still going to get the movement. You want to prevent movement as much as you can. Once it's into the frame, it's okay. Here's the hotel. He says that this glass was rated for category 5. That's what he says. And it didn't perform badly, but we did have some areas where it didn't perform well. These roller shutters generally didn't perform well. You'll notice there's a frame behind this roller shutter. So I'll go behind it. You can see that's a frame. They only had it on one side, so they didn't take into account the suction force of the wind, which was too bad. This is the electricity company. I had designed these things for Light and Power to prevent the movement many years ago, a couple of decades ago. And they worked very well in, so you have one in the front, one in the back. Very well as the top. I believe Light and Power still has them. We should have gotten royalties. We should have really patented this thing here. Unfortunately, it's been used, I guess, through Carolac, and I didn't get a cent in royalties. Yes. Anyhow, you live and learn. Yes. But it worked. It worked very well. Again, this sheetrock gypsum wall board doesn't work well at all. The ceilings, best to use something else. Well, these tiles, unless you're happy to see that deformity. Now here, these accordion ones, they didn't work, but that's because the frame was not installed properly. Therefore, they're on the ground. This type, about half the time it worked, half the time it didn't, and it's mainly, again, the frame. You need to install the frame properly. And you see the bottom frame was not installed properly. I want to mention churches, because churches did not fare very well. The same problem of failure at the joint, and wet and dry rot. Here's another one where the covering and the plywood was removed, a lot of it. So, yeah, generally bad. This one here, I got a chance to go in. So one whole side is gone. That's the sheeting, and the sheeting on the other side, on the left side, my left. Well, if we look at it, it was too thin, less than 0.5 millimeters thick. There's some of it. This is a digicel pole, and it also failed just between the houses. I mean, and someone was in that house. Someone was in that house to your left. But by the mercy of God, and it failed at the biggest point because they went and intentionally put in these holes, and therefore that's where you expect. If you're going to do that, you must strengthen it. Here's another one, and these ones, the bolts sheared, and when you check, the bolts were not standard bolts, so it was a mistake. This is an error in inspection. Well, let's say I'll show some flow ones as well, since we've got to hit both. Same thing. Now we have some gas stations, and you see this one is fixed at one end. It's supposed to be anyway at the gas station, and the other end, the lateral direction had the weak axis. So it's simply a design error. You should have turned those. And then we went around Barbados and found we have this one done properly, because it's fixed there at the end, and you see it's in the strong axis where you expect the lateral load. However, not that one, and not that one. Oh no, this one is good. This is how it should be. That's the proper way. But not that one. And there's a number that were not. You can just drive around, you go see them for yourself. I try to explain, well, they need some assistance. They said, no, we know what we're doing. All right, fine. These photovoltaic, again, as Tony noted, they did perform reasonably well, but not the farm. There's a 1 megawatt farm in Anguilla. Catastrophic damage. Catastrophic. So I said, why? Because of unbraced. There was movement. Whenever there's movement again, you don't expect things to survive a hurricane. So this is the one that we have in our 10 megawatt light of power. And again, the same thing. No lateral support. No lateral bracing. So I talked to light of power. I said, well, listen, I think you need some assistance there. I'll give you a free advice. No, we know everything. I said, all right. I went up there anyway and took these pictures. And then I tried to explain it to them. I said, look, we good. Keep your knowledge to yourself. I said, all right.
Generally in Barbados, when we think of hurricanes, we think mainly about wind. But you also have two other serious concerns. That is storm surge and flooding. Now, storm surge is a normal rise in sea level generated by the storm's winds. Storm surges can reach up to a height of 20 feet and span hundreds of miles off the coast. This should be a main issue for people living close to the coast, on the coast or close to the coast. Town plan legislates a 100-foot setback from the beach edge and 30 feet from the cliff edge for this reason. However, different methods of construction can be contemplated for new buildings on the coastal areas. Example, possibly building on columns or having walls perpendicular to the shore made of poured concrete with the walls parallel to the shore of lighter construction that can be sacrificed during a surge. And this method has been used in tsunami-prone areas. Flash flooding is not generally a problem, but it can be, and rainfall is not related to the speed of the winds in the hurricane, but to the size of the hurricane and the speed of the whole system as it moves, and also to the geography of the area. So slower moving storms produce more rainfall, and mountainous terrains also enhances the rainfall. So when driving and encountering a flooded area, do not go through the water, okay? If possible, do not build on higher ground, or if you're building in a flood-prone area, you can do like they do in Guyana and build upon columns for flood-prone areas. Our greatest concern here is for high winds over 75 miles per hour. And as we know, these winds can blow down a house, take off roofs, strip a building of its windows and doors. However, the danger is not just from the wind itself, but from debris like tree branches, palings, and other loose items that can become missiles during a storm. What is often not known is that in a storm, you can also have mini tornadoes within the storm. And these usually are away from the center or near the eye wall and can be concentrated areas of damage. So even though you see a storm going by and you see this building surviving, that building surviving, that one may be affected by a mini tornado within the storm. So that's often not thought about. All right, let's look at if you're building a new building, say a dwelling house on a vacant piece of land. What would you buy, for example? A beautiful ridge view is fantastic. I would love a view myself. However, you are now exposing yourself to elements. And a plot shielded by a cliff might be a savior sometimes in this regard. Anyway, all things being equal, with good construction methods and good techniques, what is the safest shape for a house and its roof? What issues should you discuss with your designer or with your architect? Now, even though I'm in a room full of engineers, you'll forgive me if I make some statements that sound like if I'm an engineer, but I'm just sort of using my little things I've learned over the years from you guys. I would think the most ideal shape for a house would be an igloo. Would you agree? It's round, aerodynamic, the wind will blow around it, wind will blow over it. No. However, who wants a igloo house? Not many people in Barbados. So, but that, to me, is the most ideal shape of a house. And while it seems a bit crazy, you could think possibly of having houses in neighborhoods or having a safe house in the neighborhood, a community center that could be an igloo shape, that could be a hurricane shelter, hurricane place for a time, but also during the non-hurricane days, could be a community center. What's wrong with having igloos there? You might not want an igloo house, but you have these safe houses that people can go to, you know, steel doors, steel windows, whatever, you can go to there. I think the next best shape, if I am not mistaken, is a flat concrete roof. Because the flat concrete roof is all built in, it's thing I don't think it can go anywhere. When I first got into business, and I came from Canada, everybody was doing these modern roofs, and no one wanted any flat roofs for houses. And now a lot of my new, younger clients, they want flat houses, flat concrete roof houses now, which is very interesting. A lot of them want that now. And the roof should never be actually flat. It should really be slightly sloped so the water can come off, okay? In terms of a house, architects love to design these fancy shaped things in and out, but that produces complicated roofs. And the more complicated a roof is the more connections there and the more possibilities of making a mistake in joining those connections. So while you may not want a box of a house, but the more simpler house is more simpler roof, right? The next thing to consider is if you're doing a timber roof, a hip timber roof is the best roof, mainly for the reason, as Mr. Gibbs said and Mr. Phillips said, it addresses the wind at all angles that the wind comes to it. And it doesn't, a gable roof, which is just two slopes, tends to put a force on the walls like that, whereas a hip roof, the force is just straight down onto the walls, okay? The next best roof, I think, would be a hip parapet roof, whereas the parapet is inside and the walls go up. After we had big hurricanes in Barbados, they took off a lot of roofs and built up parapets. And you'll see a lot of older buildings with parapet roofs. However, the challenge with parapet roof is maintenance, clearing out those leaves, and also construction. They're never built very well, I find, in my opinion, unless you use a concrete parapet roof. Above that, roofs with a slope above 30 degrees would be more ideal than a flatter roof. The reason for that is that when you have a flat roof like a shed roof, is that as the hurricane is passing over the roof, it creates a negative pressure area and literally sucks the roof off. So it doesn't necessarily blow the roof off, but you create a negative pressure difference that makes the roof like an airfoil, and that literally sucks the roof and the sheeting off. That is how planes fly, and you don't want your roof or a house to fly. Is that correct?
Sure.
Good, thank you. So a gable roof with a slope above 30 degrees would be next best. And the other thing to do is reduce all of your overhangs. The less overhang you have is the better. I know I like to see beautiful overhangs like Frank Lloyd Wright buildings. However, those are hurricane food, and the hurricane can get under there and lift it up. Now, something we do not often think in designs is that a patio roof, which is connected into a main roof, is like a big overhang. So what you should really design is having it so that if you want that one big slope, have it so the patio roof is connected to the main roof. But if that blows off, let that blow off, rather than having one big long thing. So you can connect it lightly there, and it's sacrificed, so be it, let it go. You can always build back a patio roof, but to build back your main roof now, you're troubled. So you don't want your patio roof to cause your main roof to lift off, okay? We often think that concrete is better than wood, and it generally is. However, if you have a timber house, which is well designed, well constructed, engineering specifications, a timber house might move slightly in the wind, and sometimes you see a big house, roof gone, and you see a chattel house with their 45-degree survived. So I think is that slight able to bend like a skyscraper. Okay, the next important thing that Grenville has been stressing all the time, shear walls, shear walls, shear walls. We need to learn how to do shear walls. Speak to Grenville Phillips, and less architects, let's put shear walls in our buildings. Those are simply walls on every side of the house that are solid concrete. You get your blocks 7 feet wide or 10 feet? 10 feet.
Yes.
10 feet. It's filled solid with
Not
steel.
solid.
Poured every 2 feet,
Yes.
and poured concrete in all the holes.
Yeah, in the cores I have in rebar.
Excellent. One thing I would suggest in a house, and I'm trying to suggest it to clients now, is have one room in the house that's a safe room. That it could be a bathroom that's bigger, where even if you may have a slope, a concrete roof, you could have a solid internal cement roof, solid walls. I don't know if it should be poured concrete or just filled solid and just steel everywhere. There's one roof in the house that you can go to in the hurricane. You close that steel door, and if everything falls down around you, at least you are physically safe, right? Now, the important thing in construction is hurricane straps, hurricane straps, hurricane straps. They're very cheap. Do not build without hurricane straps. Make sure architects check your contractors, specify your drawings. Make sure hurricane straps are used. They're like 75 cents for one, $1? $1.20. It's no money. It is no money compared to your overall cost of your house. So use hurricane straps, especially ones that are like a square and they go over the ridge and the rafters. So that is very, very important. If you have a house which you realize is not, you can't retrofit because of the way it is done, you can retrofit it with some hurricane straps. But I have seen it possibly done with single-story houses where, I haven't seen it done here, where you can actually strap the whole house down. I don't know if you've ever seen that. Where you can have like foundation columns with rings and then some big sort of cable come over in the event of a hurricane. I've seen that done somewhere where you can literally strap the whole house down.
I think we had a very good day today. I want to thank all of you for coming out to this session. I think we've had various levels of participation over the course of the day. What we recognize is that Barbados and the rest of the Caribbean is in an area of vulnerability. And it's not just a matter of if we get hit at some point in time, but it's a matter of when and what magnitude of disaster we will experience. I think that BAPE, along with its partners in BIA, are trying to make sure that we sensitize the public and its members generally so that we can make ourselves ready for that eventuality and prepare for the worst, but really hope for the best. I think all of us would prefer if in our lifetime or in our children's lifetime that we don't have to encounter any of these disasters, particularly when we have seen the devastation that has occurred over the region in St. Martin, BVI, Dominica, Puerto Rico, et cetera, et cetera. I think for most of us, we cannot even imagine what would happen here in Barbados, because as I've been chatting with some persons, we Barbadians have become a little spoiled. And unfortunately, we have not had to endure very much hardship. And therefore, it will be a new thing for us and for our families and for our loved ones and so on. And so what we have to do is to try to learn as much as possible from the experiences of our fellow Caribbean brothers and sisters. This morning, we had this stage set by our President Brown, followed by Mr. Lord, who would have indicated planning for strong hurricanes. And I think now we know that we need to really plan for those strong events. And that planning is not just a matter of going out and getting our corned beef and tuna and sardines and biscuits, but it's really that long-term planning to make sure that we are preparing our properties, residents, businesses, the community at large for the events to come. I think we have to go get the same way we've gone away from looking at disasters as just hurricanes and looking at disasters globally. We have to move away from just preparing for food and let us try to make sure that we can mitigate in our design and designing and retrofitting so that as a country that we would be ready to withstand whatever may come our way.